Hey everyone, Aaron Von Lupton here, writer and music editor for RUE MORGUE magazine. This is Listen to My Nightmare, where I'll be taking you through the coolest, weirdest, and most obscure horror music there is. Now, my passion is still horror soundtracks, but I'll be taking you well beyond that, to any place the genre extends its sonic tentacles, from the biggest names in shock rock to more obscure punk, surf, and electronic music that you've probably never heard of. So sit back, but don't relax too much, because this is Listen to My Nightmare. In each episode, this is what we're going to do. We're going to show you one album, one soundtrack, one 7-inch, okay? So we're going to start it off with an album by a band called The Accused. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Hey, Aaron Von Lupton, if you're going to talk about The Accused, why would you bring up The Curse of Martha Splatterhead? After all, it's not one of their classic albums, that's a new album. Well, too bad, okay? For those of you who don't know, The Accused were, I guess you could say, a crossover thrash band. They were from the Seattle, Washington area, and although they were crossover thrash, they would have called themselves splatter rock. And what that meant was they were too metal to be punk, and they were too punk to be metal. And they were mostly informed by horror films, splatter films from the 80s, and that's what made them really cool, right? Their mascot, Martha Splatterhead, that was an invention of theirs by the band. They designed it, and she shows up on all their album covers and a lot of their song titles and a lot of their album titles. Well, a lot of their songs are about Martha Splatterhead coming back from the dead and seeking revenge. The band went through a lot of different lineup changes. The only real consistent member was the guitarist Tommy Niemeyer. They released a series of classic albums in the 80s. They released Martha Splatterhead, Martha Splatterhead's Maddest Stories Ever Told, and my own personal favorite, More Fun Than an Open Casket Funeral. They took a hiatus from about 1993. They didn't reform until 2003, and there was a lot of different lineup changes as usual, with the only consistent member being Tommy Niemeyer. At one point, they needed to get a new vocalist. They approached none other for vocalist, Mike Patton. Now that might sound kind of strange that they would, approach someone as big as Mike Patton from Faith No More to be in such a small band. But Mike Patton was actually a fan of the band. But more importantly, if you ever listen to the vocals for the band by Blaine Cook, his, shall we call them, vocal gymnastics are actually pretty similar to the similar vocal dexterity exhibited by Mike Patton. And Mike was a fan of the band, but he was just too busy at the time, so he turned it down. But he recommended a guy by the name of Brad Moen. And Brad Moen was the vocalist for a band called Burning Witch. Brad came on board, and they eventually put out this album, The Curse of Martha Splatterhead. What else can you really ask for in a band? That album came out on Southern Lord. And The Accused. If you like punk, you like metal, and you like splatter films, check out The Accused. For today's soundtrack, show and tell, we're going to talk about The Boogeyman. And this is the old school Boogeyman from 1980. That was a film that was directed by Uli Lommel.
That night, it still haunts me, and there must be a reason. I'm afraid something's going to happen.
What's going on? Is that man hurting Mommy? Boogeyman!
The Boogeyman was part of the original sort of slasher cycle of the early 80s. Whenever I think of the Boogeyman, I always think back to this segment of Siskel and Ebert where they were, well into their witch hunt against slasher films. And they were talking all about how, the makers and the directors of slasher films really hated women, and that it was because of all the gender-based violence, and they were showing a lot of clips of the Boogeyman. So I was associated with that. Obviously, it was done on the cheap. So they had to hire in not really a professional composer. So they hired SST Records. Not that SST Records, though. Not the Black Flag label. Instead, SST stood for Synth Soundtrack, and they were basically sound consultants from California, and they had access to a whole bunch of vintage equipment like Prophet 5 and a Mini Moog, and so they were able to come up with something that sounded a little bit more professional than, you know, it really was. They came up with something that was really kind of moody and ethereal. This is just one of the strangest sounding soundtracks for an electronic piece of music. The second track on this album is called Nightmare, and I've always said it sounds like it's coming from a nature video. Starts off sounding like a loon call or something like that before it eventually descends into something very similar to a John Carpenter film, like a John Carpenter's Halloween. It's one of the holy grails for soundtrack collectors now. How do I know that? Because I don't own it. If I owned it, then, you know, I'd be saying something different. It's worth a lot of money. I've never seen it in the wild. I've never even seen it at a convention. So if you ever do, hit me up, okay? But back in 2014, a label called Terror Records put it out, and then One Way Static, which I believe is from Belgium, they reissued it again. And here is the beautiful green vinyl. I mean, that is a pretty beautiful color, I do believe. And what's very interesting is that it also came along with something that I've never seen in any other vinyl reissue, which is a CD record. It's basically a CD that plays on your turntable, and it plays TV spots and that sort of thing. So a nice little easy bonus feature. So hey, it's not the SST Records one. I wish I owned that, but I think this one's kind of better looking. So there is that. Okay, so now I'm sliding open the 7-inch drawer of the Aaron Von Lupton Record Archive, and I'm pulling out the Witchboard 7-inch. This was put out by Lunaris Records. So, Witchboard, a lot of you have probably heard of that. It's a 1986 80s horror film. It's the kind of movie that, you know, Yasmina would probably be showing on her show.
Can you hear me?
It began at a party. It was only a game.
David, will you return to the living one day? Bullshit.
There's not a lot of music featured in it. It was directed by Kevin Tenney, who of course would go on to do Night of the Demons, but this was his first film, Witchboard. And like Night of the Demons, he brought in his brother, Dennis Michael Tenney, to do the music. And so the 7-inch only has 2 tracks on it. It's got the Witchboard theme, and it's also got a song called Bump in the Night by an 80s metal band called Steel Breeze. The Witchboard theme is a basic 3-note progression that, again, just sounds like it's tailor-made for haunted house attractions and 80s horror. You cannot separate it from the 80s horror in that particular part of the genre. Bump in the Night. This is an awesome song, actually. It's really underrated. It doesn't get played enough at Halloween parties. It probably should. And it's right up there with something that would be on, say, the Trick or Treat soundtrack, or even Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. It has what I would call the nighttime summer energy of the Latex and Blood period. Because there's such little music on this 7-inch, the flip side of it is actually an etching of a Ouija board, which makes it very cool. Don't play that side though, because you'll summon demons, and also it doesn't have any music on it. So anyhow, Witchboard, Lunaris Records, that's a neat little collector's item, and also Bump in the Night. It's a cool song, man. Check it out. All right, everybody, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from today's eclectic choices in music, from the splatter rock of The Accused to the Halloween party tunes of the Witchboard soundtrack. Don't forget to like and subscribe to RUE MORGUE TV, And don't forget to tune in next time. I think you're going to like it.